Hi, and welcome to the Leadership Untitled podcast, the show where I speak to an expert in the area of leadership and or L&D, and by the end of the show, we decide together on what the title will be for that episode based on the conversation flow. This week, I've got Graham Wilson, who founded his Successfactory for leadership over 27 years ago now, and is an expert in the area and speaks regularly about it, has his own podcast, and is a recognised author also with his book, Leadership Laid Bare. So I can't wait to get stuck into this conversation with what one of his clients called the Leadership Wizard. So without further ado, let's join Graham. So hi, Graham. Welcome to the Leadership Untitled podcast. It's great to have you join me today. Thanks for joining.
My pleasure, Rob. It's really exciting. I know we're both passionate about leadership, and we're also passionate about L&D, aren't we, as well? So I'm really excited to share some thoughts and ideas with you.
Oh, massively. I mean, it's one of the reasons that I started this podcast, Graham, is that throughout my career in L&D, I think leadership has come up as the one thing that either makes or breaks the things that I've tried to do. And I guess for that reason, the influence I've tried to have on leadership outside the L&D projects has been a massive thing. So, how did you get into all of that?
I guess for me, I couldn't wait to leave school, which is quite ironic because my mum was a school teacher and she actually taught at the same school as me, which was quite good from a grown-up point of view. You learned how to be hard and strong in that environment, overcome the bullying, let's say. No, my mum's a fantastic teacher, which was well respected at school, so it made my life easy. But I just couldn't get into education really because I just didn't see the purpose behind it. I don't know whether that's I'm a young boy or whatever, but I wasn't inspired. There was a couple of teachers that really inspired me. Yeah, ironically, they sort of tend to be around sport and I suppose some of their more hands-on sort of type of learning. But I just found it really difficult. So I left at 16 and I joined the military, and it was there that I really sort of started to experience what's possible from a human point of view and how amazing we are with the right development and be able to create this high trust environment where you were pushed really hard, you were taken outside your comfort zone, and it's amazing what you can really achieve. So that whole concept and my purpose now is about awakening possibility in people to deliver extraordinary results. And that's really where that came from. So at 16, I suddenly realized actually that I was capable of far more things than I thought I was ever possible. And also learning how to purpose. When someone tells you that if you don't learn this, you probably could die. It sort of makes sense then, doesn't it, to learn it? But it was also hands-on as well, my mum, when I said that I wanted to leave, not do A-levels and go into the army, she said, well, I'd love you to go and do A-levels, go to university, but I think, if you're really passionate about that, then we support you, which was great. I said, well, but go and get a trade. So I trained initially really in communications, radio communications. So I did an apprenticeship in that, and it was really good to get the balance between, learning things for real. I'm very kinesthetic and I like to learn. Once I know the purpose, I'll learn it really well. So that was really a big chapter in my life, really, to understand how important learning is and when it's done properly, what difference it can make to your life, because it really gave me a foundation. So after that, of course, you 2.5 years of an apprentice, then you get promoted, and you're then leading teams at a young age, and you're leading people that are a lot older than you, a lot more experienced for you, and you're traveling around the world. And I was really fortunate to be in like a quick response unit, so we're on 4-hour standby to go anywhere in the world. So we trained for that. So we trained probably about 70% of my time. The sort of 9 years I spent in the army, 7% time was spent training and developing, and 30% operational. And that does vary from person to person, but I thought that was quite interesting, isn't it, in terms of workload, that we saw training as part of our work and getting it right and getting to that elite level, which was fantastic. And travel the world. I saw what leadership really looks like under hostile conditions, what good leadership and bad leadership looks like, I guess. And that really started to inspire me, really. And I got to a point in my career, I was still young enough, I thought, I still don't know what this corporate world's all about. And my dad worked for Shell all his life, and I knew what Shell was all about, but I didn't know what working in that environment was like. So I decided to move on and join DuPont. And again, that was at the time was a fantastic move, because they had a 6-month induction program, which was great, which really developed you. You had to work in each different department of the business. And you had to learn the job properly before they let you out there in the field, if you like. And that was great. And I really enjoyed that. And yeah, after about 7 or 8 years of doing that, I was due to move to a different location, which I didn't really want to do. I was thinking about having a family and stuff like that. So I thought, what do I really want to do? And I went back to that military piece around that human potential piece around when you develop people and you help them to use their skills and their strengths. It's amazing what you can achieve. So I thought, why don't I start a business around that? And I had no idea how to do that. So I left DuPont. I had a year of sort of thinking about things and doing a bit of freelance work. And then, we started the business, and that was 27 years ago now. So
it seems like yesterday in some respects, and it probably seems like a lot longer in others, is it?
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, we were talking before the podcast started about results and performance, and one thing was really interesting for me, a big learning lesson is I had no idea how to start a business. You go from the big corporate world, don't you? And it's like, I've got to do marketing now. I've got to do sales. I've got to do the delivery. I've got to do project management. I've got to do the accounting. How do I do all that sort of thing and fill all that in? So that was a big learning lesson. But one of the things I did, which was a mistake actually in hindsight, was I said to myself, it wasn't written down anywhere, but subconsciously I said to myself, if I can earn as much money as I did in DuPont in the first year of my business, I'll be happy. And what was really interesting is, to the penny, I did.
Wow.
And I thought, that was stupid. I should have said, I want to double what I'm going to earn. And maybe I would have got
saying it's more. That powerful. Yeah. I want to earn $1 million, 2 million.
Yeah. I say, I'm going to blow that out. Yeah. I'm going to double my salary at DuPont, and might not have got there, but I probably would have done more than I did. And I thought, that's really interesting. You've got to be really careful about the goals you set. And I always remember we were doing some stuff for a bank, financial clients years and years ago. And Will Carling was a guest speaker.
Yeah.
And he talked about how, the mistake, they made really was to set the wrong goals, really. They didn't really set a goal which was about winning the World Cup. They didn't set that, and it was an error. And I think you've got to be really careful, haven't you, around what you set.
I think it's massive. I think in organizations where they get it wrong and where they get it right again, is that ultimate goal. How does that actually translate down the chain? When I'm on the front line talking to customers, how do my goals actually feed into that big goal? And that's where I see that, and particularly again somewhere close to my heart in terms of L&D. You get very siloed and isolated goals just about your own work that you might well achieve, but it just isn't very clear at all how it actually ties in.
Absolutely. That lack of clarity and a lack of joining the dots is something we talk about. We both talk about, don't we, in leadership development? The importance of doing that. And I guess your question there about how did I get into that? So I guess for me is that I suddenly realized that there's so many organizations out there that are overmanaged and underled. And don't get me wrong, you need great managers. I'm not saying you don't need management. I think often the pendulum swings, don't you? And you get this latest fad that says it's all about leadership now. Well, it is about leadership, but it's also about management. You still need people to deliver stuff, don't you? And get the best out of people and all that stuff. So you got to have that balance right. And I felt the balance was too far into that management. The bureaucracy, top-down leadership, the hierarchy, silo mentality, all those sort of things. And I think a lot of that, it comes from really how we're taught at school, and I can certainly remember that, if I'm in a classroom and the teacher asked me a question, if I knew the answer, I'd put my hand up, wouldn't I? And the teacher would tell me whether I'm right or wrong. And I often ask groups, I said to what would happen if you were back at school and the teacher asked a question and you turned around to your classmates and had a conversation and collaborated with them around the answer? The teacher probably, certainly if you went to school I went to, would probably tell you off, wouldn't they, for cheating? And I think that's fascinating, isn't it? So at a young age, a lot of us, I know it's changing now and bringing it forward. And I guess obviously we're talking today, aren't we, in another lockdown, aren't we? Lockdown 3, where my niece just said that her teacher has just been to her house and dropped off 3 computers, 3 laptops for the kids. Which is completely different world, isn't it?
Oh, completely different world. I popped to my son's primary school today because they've created some packs for them. Just a little folder of paper and pens and scissors and glue and all that sort of stuff.
All the lesson plans, all that stuff. It's great, isn't it? So I think a lot of it, and I've asked this around the world really. There's only one country actually that doesn't happen, which is Finland, which is interesting. And ironically, they have the best education system in the world, don't they? But everyone says that they were taught at school that teamwork is cheating.
Mm.
That you've got to, it's all about you. And I think, in work, and certainly today, we need people who can collaborate. And the sad thing is, a lot of people don't know how to do that. They see collaboration as getting some wild technology or whatever,
Yeah. Well, you've really made me think about
yeah.
that there, because I think, so many times at high school, I was just watching a teacher chalk loads of stuff up on a board at the front of the class.
Yeah.
Which I then was just writing down in my book in the class, which I
yeah.
then went home and read and tried to dump onto an exam paper at the end of the year.
Yeah, try to remember it. I mean, that's how I got through
Exactly.
my O-levels. In my day, it was O-levels, but I just had a good memory. And I thought, right, I got my physics exam tomorrow. So if I memorize it, repeat it, and then I got some good grades. But so I think that's one thing. The other thing which is interesting as well is that, certainly at secondary school, we get taught, don't we, by subject matter experts and, in different classrooms around the school. I think we mirror that in our organizations. So, we create these silos, don't we, where you have subject matter experts who are leading them. And the problem with that, of course, is they think they know all the answers, which they probably did years ago. But we're now in a different world, aren't we, where it's a lot foggier, isn't it? Where the pace of change has outstripped our ability to keep up with it. So it's not possible for leaders to have all the knowledge anymore. And there's probably people in different departments who probably know more about your problem and the solution than you do. And we just don't do that. We set up individual plans. We set up individual, if it's a problem in marketing solve it. It's a problem in finance solve it. And we don't actually do collaboration effectively. So one of the things I'm passionate about is trying to really educate senior leadership teams around, what does leadership really look like in today's world? Leadership is contextual. If I take some of the amazing leaders that I've seen in the military and put them in a corporation, they might survive, but they might not, because they've got different attributes and different skill sets, and if they can adapt, they'll probably do really well. So I think that's really, what I'm passionate about is really having that dialogue and discussion with leaders and saying, well, if the context has changed, then maybe we need to change. I know you're passionate about football, aren't you? And particularly Liverpool, is that right? Do you imagine if we sent out the Liverpool football team for the next match with the same boots they had on in the 1966 World Cup? They probably wouldn't do very well, would they?
Or the ball.
Or those long shorts or whatever. Maybe they do better, I don't know. But the reason I mention that, because I always remember I can't remember the comic, actually. I used to read a comic, and there was a story, a guy called Billy's Boots, and it was Melchester United, wasn't it? I think it was. I remember
that for some reason.
You remember that? Yeah. and he used to be like about 10-0 at half time, and then he put his famous boots on, and then it'd be like 11-10 by the end of the match. I think I used to love that. But so I guess that's why I do what I do, really, because I think we can really support organizations, I know you do as well, around getting them to think differently, but then to decode what they're doing. And I think half the challenge I have really is to get organizations to slow down. I'm really passionate about motor racing. I do racing, historic racing. I've got a couple of cars that I race, and I learned from my dad and my uncle. My dad used to race bikes, and my uncle used to race cars. So at a young age, I learned from them around the importance of knowing when to go fast and knowing when to go slow, because every time they lost a race was because they're going too fast.
And I noticed that you've got that in the book, haven't you, somewhere?
Absolutely. And that ability to know when to slow down. And like I work with a lot of L&D teams, and I get them initially. One of the questions I always ask L&D teams initially, I say to them before we start the session, just individually on a piece of paper. So go back to the old school. No cheating. Back to the old school. On a piece of paper, write down the organizational strategy. And it's very rare that they can do that. So the next question is, how do you know what you should be doing if you don't know what the organizational strategy is? And I think if you're in L&D, you need to know the strategy almost as well as, if not better, than the senior team, and you need to know the rationale behind it. Why are we doing what we're doing? Where are we now? Where do we need to get to? What are the big things that we're working on? Now, how does what we do drive that and link into it? Because L&D links into all of it. Because one of the things I always talk about in terms of change is, a lot of people, they're pretty good at creating the burning platform, aren't they, or whatever, or the vision or whatever. but they don't build the capability to move from A to B. What skills and what knowledge, what mindsets do we need to be able to get to operate in this new world? And I always we can probably talk about football and sport a lot, aren't we, today, Rob?
It's going to be.
I can always remember the German football team when they won the World Cup. They had a 4-year strategy, didn't they? Where at the end of, I can't remember what year it was now, but at the end of the World Cup, where they didn't do very well, they worked out what would win the World Cup in 4 years' time, and they believed it was all about the I can't remember what they call it, one-touch football. What's it called? There's a special name for it anyway, but basically one-touch football. And obviously, what they realised was that if in order to play one-touch football at that elite level, they're not fit enough at the moment. Because you've got to be able to receive the ball, haven't you? Collect it and pass it in one touch, which means the players have to run around a lot. And they weren't fit enough. And I remember the story is that they went to every team in Germany at the time and said, who's the fittest team in Germany at the moment? And it was the field hockey team, apparently. Right. So they went to the field hockey team and said, right, what do you do to get your players really fit? And they said this. They said, okay, well, we're going to do that. So they took that idea and then they put a 4-year plan together to get themselves fit enough in order to be able to play and they won the World Cup.
There you go.
Yeah,
somebody get that over to England then. So we team over to see the German hockey clubs.
Well, I think in England it's more about, is it mindset? We've probably got some of the best players in the world, but can they play together as a team? Yeah, we're getting there, aren't we?
Exactly that. And we rely on those players and just let them go. And stories that have come out certainly around that kind of golden generation of the early 2000s, how siloed it was, really feeds into what you were saying earlier on about how teams really do split up. I mean, going back into your book, based on everything you said there, you start off the book saying, let's start a leadership revolution.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you mean by that revolution? What needs to happen in your eyes?
Well, I think for many years we've faffed around, haven't we, by trying to tweak things. I think, evolution is not going to cut it. We need to have a revolution, and we need to say, look, actually, we need to really start to have some good dialogue around what leadership looks like in the future. And I think, I know the crisis is a terrible thing, and COVID and people dying is horrible, and it's a terrible thing. Looking, for the good in that is it has suddenly woken up a lot of organizations, and they said, you know what, we do need to change now. We can't lead in the same way as we did before. We're going to have a lot more people working from home. So, in the past, there was too much micromanagement, wasn't there? That people used to, be in the same room. And it's interesting, actually. We did some work with a work planner a while ago, and they do design, architectural design of layouts, and it's really fascinating how I hadn't realised, but a lot of work office environments is you have all the workers in the middle of the room, and the managers sit around the outside of the room looking in. And I'm thinking, it just reminds me of we watched Scrooge over Christmas, where he's there with it at the front of the higher desk, looking over all the workers. I'm thinking, oh my God, it's still the same, 2020, and it's still the same. I guess it's changed now, isn't it? Because a lot of people working from home, but a lot of leaders or managers, I should say, have been used to leading by being able to see what people are doing, and they can, have all these update meetings, all this rubbish that goes on, and micromanagement stuff goes on. But now they've got to trust their workers, haven't they, to get on with it. And I find it really sad when I hear, consultancies trying to sell software that checks up on people about what they're doing, and thinking, oh my God, does it really matter what hours they work? Isn't it about what they get as an outcome?
Well, that's it. Trying to trap people and find the things that they're not doing right, rather than actually rewarding what they are doing.
Yeah, you didn't log on till 9:05, and then your keyboard wasn't used for 10 minutes or whatever. Thinking, my kids needed a bit of help, or I need to go for a coffee or whatever. So what? Does it really matter? So this whole loosening off of management, I think, is really important. And what that means is we need to have better skills, don't we? Which is where L&D comes in. So we need to have leaders and managers who can set direction, can really empower people and give them the autonomy, but then really support them and look at their role is not to micromanage them. Their role is to enable them to be able to do their jobs effectively. And you don't do that. I often challenge senior leadership teams, and I said, so, are you a leadership team or are you an update team? They go, what do you mean? They all get up a tea and their egos are bruised and stuff like that. And when we get to the end of the dialogue, of course, is what they realize is they're an update team, because
Yeah.
the only time they get together is they sit around the boardroom table and they do updates for each department. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I've seen it
Some
in
PowerPoint
different
slides.
leadership teams where, one department's getting a bit of a hammering because they got some red dots on the scorecard, and everyone else is sat back, quite happy and smiling. So they go, yeah, I'll go away and I'll sort that out. So they go away and sort it out. And the next board meeting or senior leadership team meeting they're sat there, really, really good because all their dots are green.
Yeah.
But all they've done is move the problem for a different department.
Yeah.
And I've seen that time and time again. And it's very rare.
Even inside departments, I see that as well.
Yeah.
The metrics within one department seem to
Yeah.
fight against each other.
Yeah.
I've seen
Why
it
would you say
obviously
that?
with my kind of background. I've seen it in call centers where we kind of go, right, we're going to put an emphasis on quality in one aspect of it, and then an aspect on the time it takes to resolve these calls in another.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes if we actually put something in place that is going to help the quality of this, it might actually take longer, certainly at the start, to get used to it and implement it and have those conversations. But then we see that dips and we go, oh, we're taking too long on the calls now. And that's what we focus on. Well, what about the great piece of work that's improved the quality of the call? Can we celebrate
the customer?
that?
The most important thing is to solve the problem for the customer, isn't it? Which I know First Direct are really good at that, aren't they? And they've got some really good measures in place. I remember working very similar to yourself there in a call center where I can't remember the exact time now, but I think they were measured on, I can't remember whether it's 2 minutes or minutes. Let's say it was 4 minutes. They had a 4-minute window to solve the customer problem. And it was a technical support team. So the customers were buying quite expensive equipment. So the customer would ring up and they bought the equipment, they're trying to install it, it's not working. So they ring up the tech support people. And it's the classic of, push button 1, push button 2. So you're pretty upset before you get to a human being anyway, because you're frustrated. So you get there and you got 4 minutes to actually solve the problem. I think it might have been less than that anyway, but anyway, let's use 4 minutes for example. And I said to the call center director, I said, can you log that? Do you know how long the calls are and when they drop out? I said, yeah. I said, so I've not seen that data yet, but I'm going to make a guess that most of your calls are about 3 minutes 58, 3 minutes 59. And what do you mean? I said, let's have a look. And went in there, and sure enough, a big spike at that.
Yeah.
And what was happening, of course, is that the support people, the agents, were measured on that. And if they went over 4 minutes, they got told off. So what would happen is, imagine you fought your way through as a customer. You get to the human being. They start to find out what the problem is. They start to, and they're looking at their clock going, oh my God. And they're just clicking off. Yeah. Clicking off at 3 minutes 59. So then what happens is that you've got to then try and get through, and you get through to another person and you go through the same process again, because they've only got 4 minutes to do it. And they're thinking, oh my God. So in the end, we removed it. And guess what? The net promoter score went up.
Yeah,
bizarrely.
Well, it really ties something into that same section of the book you've got there. In when it comes to the why, you said we need to change the way we lead and what gets in the way. Now that for me is a great example. I talk a lot about symptoms of problems versus the actual problems. And you just awoke a memory of mine that I think it was, I can't remember where it was now, it might have been Aviva that was on the phone to once many years ago. And I was in a queue, as you just stated there, and it said like you actually were allowed or able to select the type of hold music
really
listen to. So like press 1 for current chart music, press 2 for classical, something like that. And my first reaction was, oh, that's pretty good. And then as I sort of like waited, and obviously you get a little bit angrier the longer you wait, you kind of go, how bad is it that they've invested to solve this symptom of a problem so heavily instead of actually just solving the problem that people are waiting in the queue?
Yeah, and created another problem. Yeah, it's a bit like I remember working in the financial sector once where they had a problem between the front office and back office. It wasn't working, so they put a middle office in. So what you now had a problem between the front office, the middle office, and the middle office and the back office, and it made it worse, And you do see that, and I think that links back to what we were saying before about slowing down to speed up. And I think that's what I learned from my parents and my dads and my uncle was that you've got to have time to think and reflect, And I see so many poor decisions being made, and a lot of that's down to poor teamwork, of course, and lack of trust and things like that. But a lot of it's down to the fact we're just working at pace. I mean, you've probably seen this as well in your L&D life around. If I'm working with an L&D team, so I ask them about what the organizational strategy is. We have a bit of a laugh and joke about it, because a lot of people don't know what strategy is anyway. So we have a debate about what strategy really is. And for me, it's about how to get from A to B. It's simple as that. There's a story behind that, of course, around your purpose and your vision and your values and all that sort of stuff. But the strategy piece is around, what do we need to do? We're here now and we want to get to here. How do we get there? And that's the strategy piece.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I then asked the L&D teams to put down all the things they're working on at the moment. And I say, okay, well, now you've done that individually. Now let's look at that collectively. And we go to a massive, like, imagine, can't you, the size of the whiteboard,
Yeah.
a 10-meter whiteboard sort of thing. And often I'll be looking at it and thinking, okay, yeah, that's a pretty good 5-year plan, jokingly. And they go, no, that's this year.
Yeah.
I'm looking back and thinking, oh my God, and what a lot of L&D teams, I think, haven't, some have, of course, some haven't, but I find it quite ironic going back to that, the whole root causes. For me, L&D, it's a project orientated environment. You are finding needs. You are, that trusted advisor, aren't you, in the organization? You're there challenging the senior teams, challenging managers, finding out what the needs are, not the wants, because often I've had requests where we want a project management course, Graham, and you go in to talk to the people, and actually they've been project managing for 25 years. Then the problem they've got is they can't influence stakeholders. So what they need is an influencing course, because it's so complicated in their business to walk through treacle to get stuff done. So the difference between a need and a want is really important to understand. And we then need to sort of turn that need, don't we, that problem into a project, don't we?
Yeah.
And I often, I know when I've worked with L&D teams and we've helped them to see their world as a project oriented environment, and we create a framework for them to work through, suddenly it all makes sense. And often you'll see, people go, well, why are we doing that project? Because that project is actually, counterproductive to that project over there. It's actually creating tension. So once you get that mapped out on a page, you can then start to prioritize it effectively. And the challenge, I think, we need L&D leaders is to be stronger and to have a bigger voice and to be more influential and have more impact and to know when to say no. And unless you can map it out and show people what you're delivering and how it all often misaligns, then how can you then influence? So I think there's some moving away from that, we're doing too much subjective sort of type feeling, to really objective stuff, saying, look, okay, there's a risk on this project because we're already doing these 5 over here. You're now asking to do this. Where's the resource going to come from that? And actually, if we're doing 25 different change projects in the business, how is that going to impact on the business? We can't do all that at once, and there's all those sort of type of things. Which
you certainly may remember there, just the couple of things that in certainly in the contact center background again that I've got that always had that reaction on me was requests for things like objection handling. Because every 12 months the prices will go up, so we need objection handling training. Well, they've had the skills training. What do they actually need? Oh, well, they need to know the detail. Okay, well, that's information and knowledge. That's where else could that be? Another one is always we need some difficult conversation training. Okay, have we ever had some just like really good communication and conversation training?
That's so true.
How many of those difficult conversations could be avoided if we just knew or removed the barriers, as we were talking about before, to just great communication? And I think one of the most recent ones probably for me is the whole thing about emotional intelligence. And I absolutely am on board with the fact that it needs to be more present in organizations. And certainly in leaders. What I do stand against slightly is that I've seen leaders who I would say in a work environment don't show very much in terms of emotional intelligence and all the ingredients that go into it. However, I know for a fact that they have more than enough emotional intelligence when it comes to going home. The way they talk about the family and the kids and the things they've done at the weekend and scenarios they talk through. And I go, okay, coming back to what you were saying before about what gets in the way. Quite often this isn't the problem, it's just a symptom. So I guess you talked about L&D leaders there as well. So if we think about L&D leaders and we think about operational leaders and the way they all kind of work together, what's getting in the way if a lot of these things that can be done and they know how to do some of these things, what's getting in the way? What's stopping? Because I guess in my experience I see more and more L&D people who want this to change. And I also see lots of new leaders who do genuinely have an appetite to lead in a different way.
I think a challenge comes. I think a challenge is, if we were to start a new company today, so for example, we work with Gymshark, for example, and they had their huge success because they're able to start from nothing and grow the business in a new world way. Where the challenge, of course, is if you've got that legacy, haven't you, where you're working for a big corporate that's been around for years. There's so many processes, and no one ever takes processes away, don't they? They just add more stuff, don't they? And
Yeah.
I think it's. Don't get me wrong. It is. I feel sorry sometimes for L&D, leaders or any leader, because it's so difficult to make change happen. And you can, the only way to do that, of course, I think really is to re-educate people. I think, for me, the best influencing you can have is to start to change minds. And once you start changing mindsets and help people realize, and I think that's what the pandemic has done, actually. It started to give a lot of leaders a bit of a shock, and you've got to start at the top. We often, I'm sure you've had that debate, do we work with the team leaders first, because it's easier to get them on board, or do you work with the senior team? And I think you've got to do both, haven't you? And unless the leadership team are modeling the way, if you like, and showing new leadership behaviors, and it's going to be really tough to make it happen. And I think that we've got to be very courageous, haven't we, as well, because we get run by these these measures which are wrong, and we're either bad or good based on how well we do on these measures, and often those measures are driving the wrong behaviors, as you mentioned before. And we've got to start to strip that away and start to make things a lot simpler and really think about what's really important. So it is a massive challenge for L&D leaders, but I think if you look at performance in elite sport, they tend to work on three things, don't they? They look at what's the structure we need. So the direction, the strategy, I guess, if you talk about from an organization point of view, the guidelines, the frameworks we use. So a bit like I said with L&D, if there's not a project management framework that's consistent across it, which has an ability to adapt and change, then it's going to be we haven't got that structure in place. So we haven't got the clarity. So I guess the first bit is making sure we've got the right structures in place for the new world. And a lot of that is around removing process, moving procedures, trusting people. I often think about it. I'll share an example where I was out with a client who is a regional director responsible for, and I get this right now, I think he's responsible for something like about £38 million worth of revenue per year for the business. And so we're out for dinner and know him really well, and we're chatting about the stuff we've been doing and stuff like that. And I know he likes a steak, so we're having steak, and there was onion rings. I know he likes onion rings, and I said, "You're not having onion rings?" He said, No. He said, "Why not? I thought you liked onion rings." And I said, "We've got a new policy in place." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "We're only allowed I don't know what comment it was, £23 or whatever for our evening meals now." And I said, if I have onion rings, it's going to take me over, and it'll be a nightmare, and my expenses will be rejected, and it's just not worth the hassle. And I sat back and I thought about that, thinking, oh my God, so we trust them to deliver all those millions every year, but we don't trust them to have a meal, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what has life come to, where we can't trust people. Okay, you go over one meal, but then you reduce it down the next meal, don't you? And it all works out in the end. And so I think that whole structure piece is really important. I think when the danger I said when I say structure is people go to make it too tight. So I think that frameworks, guidelines. I know in the past we've talked about competency frameworks, and for me it's more about having a set of leadership principles and a competency framework, or a set of guidelines, or 4 or 5 things that are really important that we need to focus on at a top level, and then allow people to build a toolkit behind that. I think it's really important. So that's the first thing. The second thing then is
just before you go on there, something you said yesterday that I really liked. We had a quick catch up yesterday before this, obviously, and you talked about, when we talked about competency frameworks, instead of being so preoccupied in trying to find out what the current behaviors and the current skill sets and skill levels are and benchmarking. Why not just all work towards the new standard or the new goal or the new vision? And it really just sang to me that, because people will get that bogged down in finding out what's wrong. Sometimes if you change direction, it doesn't matter what was not working, because you've got the new thing.
You could argue. I mean, how many consultancies make lots of money on measuring all the old stuff when we don't need to do that at all? We just need to think about what do we need in the future, and how many millions would we save doing that? Billions probably worldwide.
Oh, absolutely,
let's just focus on the future. It's a bit like, things. I did some work in academia for a little while, but I got frustrated because, a lot of it's around, case studies and what other leaders did in the past. And I think that's quite dangerous these days, because my view is that we need to be thinking about what we need to do to be successful in the future. Okay, so IKEA did this in 1984. Might be relevant, but might not be anymore.
Yeah.
And IKEA is a great business and all that sort of stuff. So I think I get the idea about academia, about the case study mentality around getting you to think in that way. But I think we start to look, if we certainly can learn from the past, but I think particularly with the pace of change, moving so fast, this has not happened before, is it? Where we are now, right now, in the middle of this pandemic, has not happened before for a lot of organizations. So, okay, we've had crises before, but it's going to radically change the way, and we need to start thinking now, don't we, about what we need to do in the future. And I think we just need to get rid of all the things that are getting in the way. Often when I'm working with teams, we get them to align their business plans with the strategy and all that sort of stuff. But one of the exercise we do, which is the big one, is what's going to get in the way? What are the blockers? What are the barriers? And is everything that you're doing aligned? Have you got the right measures in place? Because I often think about when you think about systems thinking, it is often complex stuff, and it actually is quite simple for me. Is if you know what your purpose is, you know what your goals are, you know what your values are, then everything should flow from that. The activities, the objectives, the measures, the values, the principles should all align to drive the right activity and the right behavior. And if people are doing the right things and behaving the right way, then you've got the right system in place.
And those things could be very individual, or they could be a team, or they could be a department. I remember I worked with the coach a couple of years ago, and they were talking about confidence quite a lot. And they had a room of people, and they were talking about how confident people felt. And then they asked a really good question, which was, for you, what is the opposite of confidence? Because so often I see coaches online and adverts coming through on LinkedIn or whatever it might be to kind of go, I can help you build your confidence. And they said, sometimes it's not about that. Sometimes it's about getting whatever is in the way of that confidence. And suddenly confidence can then have the room to grow naturally.
Absolutely.
And it was interesting that you must have a room of about 20 people, and every single person a different answer. And I think, with that L&D teams, what's getting in the way of this or that, or leaders, the same question. Those answers could be very generic and corporate looking. It could also be very individual at times.
It's a massive point there you make about, if I link back to that, what I was talking about the three things for performance, the performance triangle, they call it. So you've got the structure stuff, which gives you clarity. Second bit is the skill set. The skill sets you need to deliver. So if you're playing football, you obviously need to kick a ball, all that sort of stuff. And then the final bit is mindset. And often that's where a lot of the barriers, aren't they? The mindset stuff, and the beliefs that we've been programming along stage that, that's certainly in the military. I realized that you're thinking, there's no way I can do that. But with the right support, it's amazing what you can do when you have to. So I think that bit around, how do you develop confidence? That's something that we teach leaders to do, is to show them how they can work with individuals to help them to build their confidence. And at the same time, as you say, remove the barriers that are stopping them from being confident. But I think it goes a little bit deeper than that, because I often talk about, you can't lead anyone unless you can lead yourself first. So when we're working with leaders, part of what we do is to help understand why we need to change. So we talk about the environment, the context, all that sort of stuff we talked about today. Then we talk about, what does great leadership look like in today's view? In terms of our view, not saying you have to do that, but get them to think about it and say to them, what does great leadership look like for you? And then the next bit then is in terms of, making that happen. Once they understand what great leadership looks like in today's world, is we've got to turn that into ways of working and into habits. And the way we do that, I've got a concept called the leadership flywheel, which basically starts once you know what leadership looks like, you've got to start with yourself. So you can't lead other people unless you can lead yourself first. So I think it starts with you. And I think, you mentioned there about emotional intelligence, and I see a lot of leadership consultancies where they focus on one thing. So we teach emotional intelligence, or we teach commercial leadership or whatever. And I think it doesn't work like that, does it?
No.
It all links together, and we have to look at the wide aspect of it. And so we talk about that. And the easiest way I describe leading self is that unless you understand who you really are, then it's really difficult to lead. So you've got to know what your strengths are. And I find the old world of training people is to find out what they can't do and send them on a training course on something they're not going to be very good at anyway. Where my view is, find out what they're really good at, and then send them on training courses on things they're really good at.
Mm.
And that's so important. You don't send your star striker in football on a goalkeeping course, do you?
No.
You send them a striking course. And I think that's where we missed it. We're trying to, we spend our time trying to find, what people can't do and develop skills where, if they need those skills and they're not going to be good at it, are they in the right role? And
exactly
one of the things I found really hard from a leadership point of view is when you get someone who you've done everything you can and you need to get them out of the business. And I call it sharing them with the competition. But I had a mentor a while ago and said to me, "So you got to change your mindset around it. I know that you find it really hard to do that, and because I feel like I failed, but actually, what I need to do, and my mindset is now is that if you've done everything you can with that person, then clearly they're in the wrong role. So ethically, as a leader, you need to find the role that suits them." And it might be in your business or it might be out of the business. And I think that's the way I always looked at it. And if I can help them find another job in somewhere else where they can, thrive and play to position, then that's got to be a good thing. And I think sometimes
purpose is such a big thing. Purpose. So you used your football analogy before around strengths and different positions. Yes, you've got to have the right position for that person. But if they don't have an interest in that sport, before
absolutely.
you actually get the actual ability to be able to play it, then it's never going to come together for those people.
Absolutely. I think that's the next sort of element I look at in terms of leading self, is that you understand who you are, you understand your DNA, your drivers, your values, all that sort of good stuff. You're using psychometrics, all that stuff to understand what you're about and stuff like that, your personality and behavioral stuff. But then you've got to work out exactly what you said there, which is, the why bit, which is, you mentioned the circle in the middle is who you are. The next round it is the why bit. And I know Simon Sinek talks a lot about start with the why, but I think it's about start with who and then why. The why comes because, what you're good at often links to your passion and purpose anyway. And if you can find something that you're passionate about, that you're good at, you're gonna fly. Then you're gonna be really good at it. And so many people doing jobs they don't like and thinking, why would you do that?
I can remember it was a friend of my mum's actually, and we're talking now when I was a teenager, probably before I was doing my A levels, and he was kind of saying, what are you thinking of doing, what sort of subjects you're going to be doing, what sort of career you're after. And I was one of the older generation. I thought, I'm going to have an answer here. Otherwise it's going to be, you need to get yourself focused, and why don't you know this, or you need to think of career and all that. What he said next really surprised me, and it's always stuck with me. And he said, because I said, I don't really know yet. I haven't really decided what direction or what it is that I'd like to do. And he just said, well, that's no problem. Just keep doing what you enjoy, and hopefully you'll end up enjoying what you do. And it always stuck with me. I mean, make your own comments around this is where I end up.
Well, you're pretty natural at what you do, aren't you? Which I think is so important, isn't it? I think that is so true. And I think I've had 3 different careers, and I've actually, I create a business now that enables me to live a wonderful life, but that business is created based on my strengths. And what I do naturally. The challenge, of course, is it's really hard to know what your strengths are, because for you they're really easy. And now at times I get a really good coach coming to me and going, Graham, I love what you do, I want to become a trainer. I'm thinking, you're an amazing coach, why do you want to become a trainer? And you might not be, I don't know, it might be, but there might not be a good trainer. So it's that sort of self-awareness, isn't it, which I think is really important. And it doesn't stop. I'm constantly finding, I'm 58 now, I'm constantly finding out new things about myself, and things that I used to be able to do, I can't do anymore, that sort of stuff. But certainly, new stuff, new mindsets. I've been reflecting over Christmas about, how I responded to the crisis this year. What have I learned from that? What's that tell me about myself? What can I build on? Have I utilized my strength? What went well, didn't go so well? All that sort of usual great stuff to think and reflect on. But once you worked out, who you are, why you do what you do, your purpose and passion, then you can start to work out, well, based on that, what should I do? And that's when you work out, I call it my leadership philosophy, or my leadership manifesto. For me in leadership, there's 10 things I need to do to be successful. And the final bit then is, how do I then sort of make that happen? And that's really where you build your tool set, your tools and techniques to, your positive thinking, your resiliency, the teaching, the storytelling, all that sort of stuff. The tools you need, all the different collaboration tools you build, and you build this toolkit that you can use that allows you to craft solutions to the situation. I think, that's another mistake I see a lot of leaders making. They take what worked in one business and try and apply it in the new business. And you see that, don't you, from L&D leaders who they worked in one business and did this and it works. Okay, well, I'm going to do that again in this new business. And you can't do that, can you? Because it might work or it might not, because you've got to look at the situation, look at the context, and then craft a solution in a collaborative way to get the results you want. In order to get the results, what do we need to do? And I think every situation is different. So 100%. that ability to craft solutions is really important. And if you haven't got a wide enough toolkit, then you're in trouble. And
so one of the things in the toolkit, actually, you talked about, trust. You've talked about trust quite a few times already today. And you've obviously got one of the tools in there is around how you make that up. And you talk about empathy, reliability, alignment, results, consistency, and brand. And that's what it contributes into being a trusted leader. What is it about trust? Why do you place so much emphasis on that?
I think, certainly from my military background, where you go into a situation where you're relying on people for your life, then if I don't trust them, I'm in trouble. If I'm in a combat situation, I'm worried about what they're doing behind me, then I'm not focusing on what I should do. So I think, people can't perform at the highest level unless you can trust them. So for me, one of my leadership philosophies is, to develop people, build their confidence, get the skill level, make sure they've got the right mindsets, make sure they've got clarity around the structures and processes, and then almost get out of the way and trust them. So I'm a firm believer in when you get to a point where trust is two ways, isn't it? You've got to behave in a certain way, so I trust you, and because it is about behavior, isn't it? It's about the choices you make, and it takes a long time to build trust, but microseconds to lose it, doesn't it, in terms of our behavior? And it's ongoing. I think what's the book, is it Stephen Covey, the son of Stephen Covey, Positive Habits?
I think I've got that sitting
somewhere
behind me today.
Speed of Trust, isn't it, where he talks about, I think he's modeled it and researched it really well, where he says it's a bit like a bank account, isn't it, where you behave in a certain way and your bank account goes up. I think he calls it credits and debits, doesn't he, where if you behave in a certain way, then it reduces. And I think, we've all said things, haven't we? Or, sent emails, whatever, that's dinted trust. But I think it's something we should work on. How many people have got KPIs? Not that I like KPIs anyway, but how many people are measured on trust or measured on confidence? And for me is, we get so het up on results that we forget, results comes from what you do. I can't control the scoreboard, but I can control my own performance. And they talk a lot then in elite teams around focus on the controllables. What are you in control of? And well, you're in control of your performance. If I'm running 100 meters in the final Olympics to win the gold medal, okay, my goal is the gold medal. But when I'm at the start, I'm not thinking about a gold medal. I'm thinking about how do I get out of the blocks the quickest. I'm thinking about my technique and mindset stuff. And so I think that bit is really, really important to get right. And so many people, when I talk about measures in organizations, they're misaligned. How many organizations there's got a value around team working or collaboration or whatever, or some words around that effect, where there's a statement that says it's on the wall, so it must be important. But, we've got to work together, sort of stuff. And then you look at the system, and they've got individual objectives, and they're rewarded individually. Well, how are they going to behave individually? The system is not. The blockers we talked about before, and that the system is not enabling them to actually be collaborative, because I need to look after myself first, and that's human nature, isn't it? And,
well, you mentioned Simon Sinek before in the Start With Why book. I can't remember the name of the airline now, but he talked about because ordinarily he himself talks about targets and bonuses being manipulation, so he's not a fan. But he said they actually put one in place, which was all around what the customer actually cares about, which was around airplanes taking off on time. Thing. So that was then the key. There's a doorbell. Someone will get that for us. These are one of the things. One of the podcast nightmares that you're going to have. But what it is that the change that I then made is that it wasn't an individual thing of what do I need to do to hit my bonus, to get my result.
Yeah.
It was, okay, what do I need to do to enable that end outcome that the customers
Yeah.
care about? And how can I help you
Yeah.
achieve that too?
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
collaborative approach
Yeah.
to getting that end
Yeah.
goal, which was something that they cared about,
Yeah.
and ultimately as well, which was the beautiful part of it for the company themselves, is that the bonuses that they paid out if that became reality was a
Yeah.
lot less than the fine
Yeah.
if it wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it actually
Absolutely.
did match into the
Yeah.
commercials as well.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of bonuses and all that sort of stuff. I think it creates bad behavior.
Yeah,
And and any organization, you see great behavior then when the results coming in, but then you see the real behavior when the results don't come in. And people make really bad decisions based on head counts, getting rid of departments, all that stuff, just to hit the bonus, and that's just wrong. And I think when profit or bonuses, I think it's Dan Pink talks about that, doesn't he, in the book Drive, isn't it, where he talks about the extraordinary truth of what motivates people. And was it purpose, mastery, and autonomy? Isn't it? I think it is. I think they're the things. And that's what we can do in it from an L&D point of view. We can help them with the mastery. We can help them to have that autonomy, because if I'm a leader, it goes down to trust. I'd be a bit naive if I didn't understand that my team can operate effectively, and let them get on with it. That's almost like abdication, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Whereas
And
what I need to do,
trust has got to grow as well. I think there's a great scene in the Man of Steel film that was I've done a white paper around trust. And it was quite an interesting take on the whole Superman story, that actually there wasn't a lot of trust between Superman and humans because he was an alien. And he didn't know if he could trust them, and they didn't know if if they could trust him, because he was so powerful. And he was speaking to a priest, just before his enemy was coming down, and he basically said, what I'm supposed to do, and you say sometimes you've just got to take a leap of faith.
Yeah.
The trust part comes later.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that is so good. Trust can be given on day one, and yes, it will absolutely grow and become stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And it will actually, when it does that, become more resilient also. Absolutely. So it doesn't just break immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. I think one of the things I reflected on this year, or last year, I should say now, was I got into a lot of flack when the first lockdown came, because I felt I wanted to do my best for people. I thought people are going to be really struggling. They're going to be in a bad way. So I gave away a lot of my stuff, my IP, and I created an online leadership program, 14-week challenge, and a whole thing around positive thinking. And I just gave it away, and I felt that was the right thing to do. And what was interesting, I got so much flack from other consultancies on social media saying, "Oh, you're devaluing our business. You're giving it all away. How can we start charging people now?" and all that sort of stuff. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting in terms of, for me, is that, I felt from an integrity point of view and an empathy point of view, that was the right thing to do. I lost a lot of revenue, but so what? I'm sure that will come back eventually. But for me, it was the right thing to do. And I think that's to me what trust is about, isn't it? Is that in the moment, it's how people operate in the moment. And certainly in the military, we needed people to step up. It's quite fascinating. A lot of people think the military is very command and control, but it's the completely opposite. It's very empowering. So in a combat situation, the person who's got the information is in charge. It doesn't matter about your hierarchical position. If you've got the information, then you lead that part of the firefight or whatever. And I think that's really interesting. In business, we don't do that, do we?
No.
We don't give that autonomy or that power to people to be able to do that, because we don't trust them. And I often think about it, where thinking back to the whole measurement piece around, why don't we just trust people? Because I can remember, I'm 58 now, I can remember not having any KPIs. I can remember doing a great job and getting great stuff done. And we've become very American, if I can say that, in the way we manage our businesses, which we need to, I think, get rid of. And, for me, it's like you hire the best person, you make sure they can deliver what they can deliver. They've got direction, autonomy, and support. And then you let them get on with it. And certainly in my team, I don't give my team KPIs. Just like I trust them to get on with it. And yes, we have conversations, and yes, we look at performance, things like that. But in L&D, for example, how many people get measured on utilization of hours delivered and all that sort of rubbish?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely they do. It just
Yeah.
made me think, actually, the first ever kind of part-time job I had while I was doing my A-levels was a milkman.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there was no KPIs in that other than there's the book, there's the milk getting delivered.
Yeah. Yeah.
But equally, what actually made me think was, some of us could do that a lot quicker than some others.
Yeah.
Some people were capable of carrying 4 bottles in their hand at a time and memorizing all the plans and what everyone had.
Yeah.
Others weren't, and
Yeah.
also you collect money, and I think at the time it was 38 pence a pint of milk.
Yeah.
So some people were great with their 38 times table.
Yeah.
And I wasn't. But as long as the job was done,
yeah, absolutely,
everyone was happy.
Yeah, I think we need to loosen up. Yeah, so going back to that whole update meeting sort of scenario where a lot of teams that get together, they don't have real meetings, they just have updates and tell me what you've done, and the managers sort of micromanaging because they feel that they've got to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And I think that's a leadership trait we need to change. For me, is you don't need to know everything.
Yeah.
You just need to trust your people to get on with it, and you're there. Your effort and energy should be focused on supporting them, enabling them, building their confidence, making sure they got the skills, removing some of the blockers, dealing with the politics if you're in a corporate world to clear the path to, make sure that they can deliver their project on the right way and stuff like that. And I think those sort of things are really important. How much time is wasted on update meetings? I don't need to know what people have done. I need to know what's stopping them from achieving success going forward.
And every meeting anyone ever has is either half an hour or an hour or 2 hours long. Just how convenient is it that everything can be decided in that amount of time?
Yeah, absolutely. And the back-to-back meetings as well. Particularly now with the Zoom and stuff like that, and crazy. And I think we've created this almost like a habit, isn't it? Where we've got this habit of way of working, and that's where I think the question around the revolution comes in. Is to break a habit, we need to have a revolution, and we need to be really serious about changing our habits. And I often say to people is how many meetings do you go to in a year that don't add value? And they all laugh. Everyone laughs, don't they? Everyone laughs about that. And I say to them, well, why do you go? Well, I've got to go, and they're thinking, what could you do if you weren't in those meetings? What more value could you add by not having to go to a meeting? Prepare your PowerPoint presentation, do your pack, do your presentation. And I've been to meetings where they'll send the board papers out or whatever, or their presentations the few days before. So you read them all, and then you sit on this, now it's on Zoom, isn't it? You sit there while they present it back to you thinking, I just read that. I don't need to know that. What I need to know is what's going well, what's not going well, what are your problems, what are the opportunities, and what do you need from us to make it happen? That's it. Let's have a conversation around what the issues and problems are and opportunities are, and then solve some problems together and move forward in a more effective way.
So you've actually got in your book as well there, you talk about the creating high performance teams is a crucial part of leadership. And obviously some of the things we've talked about there aren't necessarily ingredients of high performance, ineffective meetings, ineffective updates, all that sort of stuff. And you've put that the role of a leader in today's world is to create high performance environment where success is inevitable. Now, it's something that I've talked about a lot, is that what's the difference between the performance and the results, the success at the end of it? Are they the same thing? Are they different things? Can you have one without the other? What's your take on that?
So if you think about, I can remember when KPIs first came in, and I was working with DuPont at the time, and we were doing some joint project with GE at the time. And I can remember I said to some of the guys on this project, what's a KPI? I don't know what you talked about. Oh, it's a new thing we're using to lead our business, and it's a key performance indicator. I went, oh, okay, that's great. And I said, can you teach me? He said, well, why didn't you come on one of our courses? So I went on one of the courses, which was great. And I sat there, and I remember the tutor, American guy, right at the start, I said, write on a bit of paper, write down all the things you need to do to be successful in your job. So he went away, wrote it down, shared it, and had a dialogue and discussion, went for a walk outside. It's quite sunny, came back in, and he said, they're the things that you need to put down as KPIs. So now let me show you how their KPIs work, sort of thing. And I often reflect on that and thinking, well, that's interesting, because what he said was really powerful. What is it you need to do in order to get the results you need? He didn't say, what are your results? Now make those KPIs. So we don't have KPIs anymore. what we have is key result indicators,
Yeah.
which we need. I think, I'm not saying we don't need results, because we need to know what we're measured on as an outcome.
Yeah.
But the focus is in the wrong place. The focus is on the outcome. I can't control the outcome, but what I can control is the input.
Yeah, exactly. And plus, I think those outcomes are crucial still, because as long as it links into the vision and mission and the strategy you've talked about again, we all need to win games. To know how we're going to get there. Absolutely. But then it's all about then, right, what's my role in that?
So performance for me is what is it you need to do in order to get your results?
Yeah.
So I've always focused on performance. So the analogy we use, we've done quite a lot of work with a consultancy called Red to Blue. And Red to Blue is a mindset philosophy used a lot in elite sport, like the All Blacks and teams like that, to change your thinking from red thinking, which is, you're stressed and your thinking part of your brain's switched off and you punch people, all that stuff, to blue thinking, which is you're coherent and you can perform at a high level. And one of the analogies they use, they say to people, so they put a picture up of two surgeons with an operating table, and they say to you, if you were lying on that table now, where would you want the performance of your surgeons? Between 0 and 100%. And everyone goes 100%. Actually 100%, if not 110%.
Yeah, please.
And I think, absolutely. So it's interesting. No one says, about results. It's about the performance, So I, if I'm leading a team, my focus should be around making sure my team can perform at 100% as often as possible.
Yeah.
That's what I need to do. So in football, how do I get my players on the pitch feeling really good so they can perform? Now, obviously, there's elements around, clarity, strategy, skills, mindset, all that stuff comes in place. But fundamentally, that's what my role is around, creating a high performance team. Is a lot of leaders don't know how to create a team. What they do is they create what I call the dead body syndrome, where they focus on tasks. They, how many times you've gone to a project meeting or a kickstart meeting or a new team where they're going, right, okay, this is what we need to achieve. These are our outputs, and it's all task, all deliverable focused. And it starts off okay, but people get tired, get a bit antsy, and things go wrong, and you get a bit of conflict, and they go, oh, we need an away day. When performance starts dropping down, they go, we need an away day. So you go away, and I always smile when we get a call, a Successfactory saying, I said, what? So the team's not performing it. Yeah, we need an away day. And then, okay, right, okay. And we have a little chat about it and discussion around it. So my belief is what good is one day focused on relationships going to do? It should be every day.
Oh, I remember getting a request from a team or team lead. Actually, it was a head of talking about morale. On the team floor, and our morale was really low, and could the L&D team actually come in and do some kind of buzz sessions to pick up morale? And I said, that's really interesting. I said, was morale low when they came out of training last time? No, morale was really high. Oh, okay. So what you're saying is morale has dropped a lot since they've not been with us and they've been in their roles with their team leads and their environment. Well, let's have a conversation about that. Why is morale so low? What could you do?
It's because the leaders are focused on deliverables, because that's what they're measured on. They're not measured on relationships, are they? And team building and stuff like that, and trust and confidence. And it's wrong. You've got to get to a point where you focus on relationships and deliverables. And I always think, in a new team, you focus on relationships first. You build the team, you set the team up for success. And I always think about, the team needs to know its purpose. Where it fits into the bigger picture. How does what it contributes to the bigger picture? The more, down to that Dan Pink stuff, the more you focus on the purpose and the contribution and the value you add, the more engaged people are going to be, because it's important. You used the example only of the cleaner, isn't it? A NASA cleaner, isn't it? Putting the man on the moon sort of stuff and things like that. So there's the purpose, and then it's around the people. Really, do we really understand each other? Do we know what motivates? We use an exercise called a user manual about getting them to create a user manual, how to get the best out of you, and we have a debate around that. What makes you mad, sad, and glad, and might do some some of the classic psychometrics to help people understand their drivers and differences and all that stuff, and make sure they're playing to position. So you've got the roles and responsibility, accountability in place. And then it's really about, what are our team values and principles we need to operate. And, the All Blacks are famous, aren't they, for having in the book Legacy around the 15 principles. And, I love the one, which is, sweep the shed, which is, there's a cultural value around humility in New Zealand. And, Jacinda Ardern is a a classic example of that, isn't it? A fantastic leader. I'd say one of the best leaders, politically in the world at the moment. I think definitely, and I think just need Michelle Obama in the States, and we're laughing, aren't we? We'll be away then, but let's not get political.
Let's not go down that route.
Don't go down that route. We were slated for that, but anyway, it's our beliefs anyway. So take it or leave it. But for me, it's around that we've that sweep the shed bit is a principle. Because it drives behavior. You might be the best team in the world or the best player in the world, but at the end of the game, you clean the dressing room. And I think that's great, isn't it, to have that humility in place. So agreeing what the team principles are really important. And then really working out what the team processes are. And typically in teams, in a corporate environment, they tend to be the meeting structures, don't they? Is what are the different types of meetings? It might be a daily buzz session, a weekly team meeting, a monthly review session, a 90-day strategy review sort of type sort of way of working routines. Getting that set in place is really important. And then it's around having a set of performance measures which indicate what is it we need to do to achieve success, and then having a sense of pride. What do we want to be famous for? And once you set that up and have that dialogue and agree that, and then you use the team then to create a plan, then you're away, aren't you? You're away.
Absolutely. So I guess coming back to the kind of one of the things we started off this conversation with then. So you've got, I think in your book again, in the how section, you've got around the reason people are so unhappy at work is that managers aren't being trained for a world, are being trained, for a world that doesn't exist anymore. And I want to change that. So the things that we're talking about there, all the things about trust, all the things about paving the way for performance that leads to that success, all the way about understanding themselves before they understand others and leading themselves before they lead others. What is the role of L&D in this? And I guess, the broader question, how do we start moving leaders into that space? Is L&D the deliverable of that, or what part do they play in it?
I think there's a number. That's a massive topic. We could spend the next 10 hours talking about that company. But I think there is a debate around what is the role of L&D going forward. I think we need leaders in the business to understand that their role is to develop people. It is about building confidence, building skill sets. You're a player coach, aren't you, in business? You need to deliver stuff, but you also need to deliver your team. I think it was John Adair, wasn't it? Which I love, and that's something they use in the military a lot around task, team, and individual. You've got the task to do, depending on your role. You've got to develop the team. You've got to develop individuals. And I think that's really important to get the balance right with that. So I think going back to that, your analogy there, where managers going to L&D and saying, "We got a problem with morale, sort it out for us." It's got to change. And we've got to get to a point in thinking, let's develop leaders to be able to sort out morale, to know how to change morale, not to rely on L&D, because it's not an L&D problem, it's a business problem, isn't it? So we an example of that, we worked with Coca, still work with Coca-Cola quite a lot, and we kept getting these team booster sessions, which was great for business. And after quite a while of doing these 1 or 2 day events, and typically it's a classic case when the team's tired, they're sales guys, engineering guys, all that sort of stuff, and they're exhausted and they want to come away for 2 days to reflect and think and have a bit of fun, which is great. But I said to the sales director and the MD are saying, well, we can carry on doing this, but wouldn't it be a better way to actually train the managers of these teams, or the leaders of these teams, to be able to do it every single day in the workplace? And I went, that's a good idea. So we changed the emphasis from doing these team building sessions run by us to then developing the team leaders to be able to do it in the work. And the difference has been dramatic, really. And I think, so I think that's just one example, isn't it? But I think, we're definitely L&D. We need to be there to challenge, provoke, to make sure people are not just having a wish list. I hate the concept of having the performance conversation where people have to fill out a learning plan and they go, okay, what courses we've got available? Tick, 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 tick. Oh, done. I hate that.
There's the menu. Approach. There's the menu of what we can do for you.
Yeah, you choose. And so I think we got to change the mindset. So I think there's a number of ways to think about that. I think first of all, we've got to focus on what we're in control of, and what we're in control of is our own house. So if I was in L&D in the corporate world, I'd get my own house in order first. So we need to be leading in a new world way. We need to have a really effective way of working. We need to set up our team's success. We need to role model what we want other leaders to do in the business. You know, we can't go out and teach other people unless we're doing it ourselves. So I
100%.
think that's got to be the starting point. So you've got to do a lot of self-awareness. You've got to have great leadership skills in place. You've got to have good teams in place. You need to have an L&D plan that's aligned, that's linked, that's reviewed regularly. It's an agile plan. You've got to be driving innovation. You've got to have a ways of working, which is looking at what other organizations are doing, looking at new ideas, new thoughts, and starting to bring those into the way of working. I know in the past we've talked about the dreaded LMS systems that people.
Yes.
How many times have L&D been told, oh, by the way, we've got a new LMS system that you weren't even involved in, but IT have bought it, and we now need to make it work. And it's just so wrong, isn't it? So
and now we need to figure out how do we get the 3,000 pieces of content on the old one onto the new one and update it all while still doing the 500 project backlog that we've got anyway.
Let's add more complexity to what we're doing and have more admin people to manage the system that's supposed to remove all that.
Let's make it really a lot easier for everyone to get to these courses that no one seems to want to go to anyway.
Absolutely. So I think there's some radical rethinking around, what does L&D look like for me? And I think for me, it's around, I like the phrase trusted advisor. I think, we need to create, L&D people who are really professional at what they do, but can go in and challenge and provoke and have a say and feel comfortable challenging any team at any level around what they need, and not be done to. And I think that's something we need to readdress. And yes, we are a support function, but we're more of an enabling function. We are there to understand what the organizational strategy is, to be able to understand the story behind what we're trying to do, understand what the vision is, being able to articulate that with meaning, but then to be able to work with the businesses to say, well, okay, what skills do you now need to get from where you are now to the future, and then start to work with them to then come up with stuff. And some of it might be corporate global programs, some of it might be on the job learning, some of it might be developing leaders to be able to coach and develop people effectively anyway. Creating the right culture. We are learning, aren't we, anyway? So creating that sort of type of stuff, because I think a lot of learning happens on the job, doesn't it? We all know that, and there's lots of research 100%. In that, and was it 70 2010 stuff in it, and all that sort of stuff, whether you believe that or not. But I think you're right. I think in the military, I didn't have an L&D team.
No, and that weirdly, you bring me to what is a question I often asked when I was performing the business partner role. If you didn't have an L&D team, what would you and your team do to try and solve this problem or get to this challenge or make this opportunity? What would it be? And the tap that opened was really useful then. And I said, okay, that's brilliant. How can we now help you do that? And I love the way that Simon Sinek talks about leadership. He talks about that leaders aren't responsible for the results, they're responsible for the people who are responsible for the results. Absolutely. And I kind of try to push that further to L&D, say we're not responsible for those people, we're responsible for the leaders who are responsible for those people, as are their own leaders. And I'm also a big believer that and if you see my stuff on LinkedIn, you'll have seen it, that learning is always happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this push in the last 10, 20 years for a learning culture is it's almost a pointless fight, because we've all got a learning culture, whether we like it or not, because bad habits, bad processes, back doors, whatever it might be, they're all learned. What we actually need, in my opinion, is that coaching culture you spoke about, and being able to help leaders create those cultures themselves.
I think you're right. I think the missing link is around learning is that yes, we're learning all the time, but you then have to connect that learning to your context, and then you have to apply that learning in a way that then improves what you're actually doing. I think the sad thing is we're working so fast that we might learn something. I mean, how many times have you heard in situations where, we've done it again, we made that mistake again? And I see that a lot in the project environment that I often work in with organizations around. So that project's failed. It's just a bit like the other one, wasn't it? have you changed how you do it? No. And it's like, why would you do that?
Why not?
So yeah, so they might have a lessons learned log somewhere in the business, but no one knows what it is, or where it is or how to get it.
Absolutely.
So I think,
so many times that celebration of success, or
yeah,
that analysis, or the
yeah,
PIR, the post-implementation review
yeah,
that
yeah. Oh,
everyone wants to have.
I've got to
But
fill out that template,
But again, no one's targeted, to your point, no one's
Yeah,
targeted
yeah,
to have
yeah,
those reviews and
yeah,
celebrate success.
yeah, yeah.
They're targeted to get
Yeah.
back onto the next project and
Next project,
deliver
yeah.
that one. So
Next, yeah,
what are you going to decide
yeah,
at that moment?
yeah. Well, yeah, I get it all the time. I do a lot around project and change, and I ask them, say, what's a successful project? And they tell me, and they go, okay, why was that successful? Well, it was delivered on time, in budget, and the right scope and all that sort of stuff. And I say, well, did it add any value? I don't know.
Yeah,
Well, why is
brilliant.
it successful then? So it's all that sort of stuff
Felt
that
good, and
we've got to
it
think
helped me
about.
achieve my
Yeah,
goals and
I
my
got a tick in the box.
targets.
I got my bonus because we came under budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the project failed. Well, that doesn't matter. I got my bonus. Yeah, my
You
cost back.
see that as well, that sometimes you get lots
Yeah,
of individuals and teams within
yeah,
companies
yeah,
achieving their targets and their bonuses,
yeah,
whilst the company itself is actually
yeah.
struggling and not hitting its targets.
I
And you
know.
go, oh,
Amazing.
that just mathematically cannot be
Yeah,
correct. You
yeah,
can't
yeah,
have people succeeding in their roles
yeah,
and the company's not in its
yeah,
metrics. It just shows they're
yeah.
not aligned.
But I think obviously you've got to get a balance between compliance and governance, and
Yeah, yeah,
a lot of there's a lot of organizations that are regulated and stuff like that, which are important, and we need to get that balance right between that. But I think we certainly can loosen off a lot, can't we, and start to you know, remove some of the thousands of KPIs we've got, and then trust people to get on with it. But get them to focus on, what are two or three things that in my team, I like to have people who know what are the 2 or 3 things you need to do consistently really well to be successful.
yeah,
Okay, then make sure they happen. And if we do that, then we're going to be more successful, I think. And so I think there's lots we can do. So going back to your question about what should L&D do, I think step one is get their own acting gear, and if they don't know how to do that, then learn what other teams are doing, learn what the latest thinking is, learn what the future, anticipate what we need to do in the future,
yeah,
and then start to make that happen. I think that's the first step. I know I've done that with L&D teams where we've helped them to think in a more strategic way, to lead more effectively, to have more impact and influence, and be more confident in what they do, to be able to challenge more effectively, but then to be able to operate in a more project management way, not in a bureaucratic way, but in a really simple way of, okay, let's not do something before we've really understood why we're doing this. And often you mentioned before, hey, how many projects get started when you haven't got to the root cause?
yeah.
And we're tackling a symptom, and we see that all
Well,
the time.
you mentioned COVID before. Obviously, it was Stephen Jr. I think he was called. Talk about his dad, and he talks about putting first things first. And I think that's what people do. People use that to actually identify what the burning fires are.
Yeah,
And that, there's nothing wrong with identifying burning fires. They need putting out. But
yeah,
I think people operate in that space then forever,
yeah,
instead of
yeah,
actually what
yeah,
I personally think the message was in that was, you need to find out what the important things are that aren't so urgent. And you
yeah,
really need to be pushing those, because those are the
yeah,
things that will
yeah,
stop the fires burning in
yeah,
the first
yeah,
place.
yeah. So we don't do that double loop learning, do we? We go, okay, so I've got to put that fire out. So put the fire out, but then another fire starts over there,
Yeah.
because actually we haven't got to the root cause yet. So we haven't said, okay, so let's understand the problem first. Why did that become a problem, and why did that happen, and why is that fire happening? If we understand that fully,
Yeah.
then we can come up with the right solution and tackle the right thing.
You're right. Well, if L&D are there with the big hose trying to put it out, but at the same time we've got poor leadership fanning the flames. It's just pointless. It's something else we need to focus on.
Yeah, it's a bit like how many L&D teams have said by the senior team, oh, we need the leadership program, go and get one.
Yeah.
And they haven't challenged back. So what we're talking about here, and there's the business hasn't really defined what leadership looks like for them. They haven't linked it to the strategy. They don't really know what their leadership principles are. They haven't really crafted some clarity around expectations. And then we go and get an off the shelf whatever program it is, and we run it, and it doesn't work. It doesn't make any difference, and we wonder why. And actually, there's
people
a lot
weren't
of other
bought into
things.
it. I mean, who better in the organization than the people within it themselves? Are there to go, what do we need from leaders in terms of values and behaviors to be able to deliver the strategy and the mission and the vision that we've all built together. Instead, we'll go, well, we just like outsource that almost to L&D and say, just go and get a best practice set of principles. Well, I don't care about those. Well, that doesn't mean anything to me.
And you get misalignment, don't you? Or even worse, what happens is if you've got a big organization, you've got like 5 or 6 different L&D departments around the world, all doing different things, you know, and you know, we're not talking, we're not learning, we're not sharing. So I think there's so L&D, get your own acting gear first, you know, develop your leaders in your L&D team, get your team set up for success, get a 1-page plan. I think if you can't articulate the L&D plan on a page, I do a lot with organizations where they take their 80-page strategy that's been developed by some consultancy for a great amount of money and say to them, look, you've got to get that down to a page, because the idea about a strategy should be around, it is about your thinking around what you should do, but it's out of date the minute you produce it because things change so quickly. So it's more about how you tell the story behind it, how you tell the direction, and how you then operate that and implement it, and how you communicate it with meaning. So if it's in 80 pages, no one's going to read it.
No,
no one
and they don't. They don't.
No.
Until they need to find a reason why something went wrong, and then they kind of go, "Oh well, we've not done what we said on page 45."
Line 54 on that Excel spreadsheet, whatever.
Exactly.
So we need to find a way of articulating that as a journey, as a story, as a narrative, and some dialogue behind it. The business is here at the moment. This is what we do for society. This is the impact we're looking for. This is our purpose, if you like. This is where we want to get to. This is where we are now. These are the 5 or 6 key things or themes we need to focus on. That's going to enable us to remove the blockers to get from where we are now to that future state. Which often requires growth, doesn't it, in today's world?
Absolutely,
and then it's around, okay, so how does our L&D plan, our people capability plan or our people plan, how does that fit in there? And I always say a good stepping stone is to get the people plan onto the major strategy, because often you'll see an organizational strategy, which is just really, it's not really a strategy, it's a set of goals. But I always think, top level strategy should be answering 3 questions. How are we going to grow? How are we going to operate more effectively and more efficiently? And what's our people plan? And so all those 3 things, all those 3 questions should be answered on 1 page. So obviously then you take the people element of that at top level, take that down, and what's your model of people development? And breaking that down into the 4 or 5 key programs or themes that you need to work on to be successful.
Absolutely.
And if all the teams I work with who do that are more successful. So
absolutely, it completely makes sense.
So
I'm just looking at some of the notes that I've made there. I think we've righted the world, and we could probably do 15 episodes about this sort of stuff. But it's been a really fantastic conversation. That I guess one of the last thing for us to do, as per the title of the podcast, Leadership Untitled, is to come up with a title for this episode based on what we've been talking about. From your mind, where do you think we might be leading to with that? What's your gut thinking there?
I like the revolution bit sort of jumped out when you were saying that. I thought, oh, he's going to ask me a question now. What do I think it should be? I think the word that came straight to my mind was something around revolution, around having the courage to because that's one of the things that gets in the way of learning, isn't it? A lack of courage. So I think courageous leadership, maybe something around that, around having the guts to get our own act in order, to be different, to be the change, isn't it? Was it Gandhi quote, isn't it? Be the change you want to see. So I think there's something around that. And it's time. The time is now. We've got a wonderful opportunity where it's a bit like, someone's, there's snow globes you get at Christmas where you shake it all up in it. Someone's done that, haven't they? They've done that to the world now and to organizations. And before all the snow settles, we need to be clear about what we're going to do. And I think now is the time to really start to have a voice and to challenge the status quo, to challenge the habits, to challenge the way we do things, to educate people around the fact that now is the time to change. There's tons of stuff in there around remote working, virtual working, trust, leadership. So let's get our order in place. If you're leading an L&D team, let's work out how to do that most effectively. Do it really well, and start to make the changes happen.
So I've got three things there from what you said. We've got the revolution, courageous leadership, or the time is now.
Yeah.
The vote is yours, Graham. What would you like it to be called?
Oh, the time. If we're going to focus on L&D, I think the time is now.
The time is
Yeah.
now.
The
Perfect.
time is now.
That will
Yeah,
be our title.
Let's not lose the opportunity. I think we've, organizations, senior teams are struggling.
Yeah.
They're in a world where in the past they've known the answers. Yeah, they're expert at retail, or expert at manufacturing, or expert whatever they're expert at. Now they're floundering a little bit, and they need help, and they need support, and they need to act really quickly to work out what is it we need to do to get the best out of our people going forward. And there's going to be massive restructuring, massive new changes, and I think L&D plays a big part in that. So let's step up. Yeah, let's not be managers and just wait to be told what to do, and implement it. Let's step up and become leaders and really go for it and have a voice and start to challenge, provoke, and make it happen. So I think, the time is now.
Perfect.
We've never had a better time, I don't think.
The time is now.
Yeah, I think in the past we used to fight for budget, didn't we? And then do whatever we could with the budget we got.
Well, so many more things are possible now. I mean, the idea of working from home was so often challenged, and now so much money and investment has gone into it and proved that it does work. What else could work? What are the things that we used to do? Should we just get rid of? What things that we learned should we bring in? It's a mix.
I think getting rid of, I think, is a massive question and a massive thing to sort out. What processes, procedures, stuff we did, I can't see at the moment, that sort of the long leadership development programs that we used to run, where they were amazing, getting away for 5 days or whatever and stuff like that. It's not going to happen for a long time. What can we do now that's going to be really effective, that is going to help people to change their mindsets, to get the skills and thinking they need to be successful going forward? Perfect. I think that's our duty. That's how we can add value. That's our
why. That's our value. That's our purpose. Exactly.
That's our need to go out there and support these leadership teams and organizations to really start to think differently.
Perfect.
Definitely.
Brilliant stuff. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Graham. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have.
I have, absolutely, and I'll obviously be watching it and reflecting on it and learning from it. Of course, there's always stuff you can learn, isn't there? So.
Exactly that. Look, watching it back and going, why did I say that?
No, I'm comfortable with what I said. It's always useful. I could have said that better, or actually I didn't mention this. And there's probably we covered such a wide range there. So there's probably topics. If anyone's sort of watching it and there's a particular topic that perhaps you want to go into a bit more depth, then maybe I'm more than happy to get on online with you, Rob, and discuss that a little bit more. If there's one particular topic. So we've gone across the top, haven't we? But we haven't done the T bit, have we? The bit going down in depth. So
well, certainly when I put this online, I'll put that in the comments, asking for people if they want anything more there. And equally, if people want to get in touch with you, Graham, are interested in more in what you do, what's the best way for them to do that?
So obviously I'm on LinkedIn. There's obviously the successfactory.co.uk is our corporate website. There's my personal website, which is grahamwilson.com. So there's tons of stuff out there. Get in touch, and more than happy to connect with you. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, all that sort of stuff. So I'm out there. Search for me. You'll find me. I'll be there. And more than happy to have a discussion and debate. And I know we're going to be doing some good stuff together, aren't we, Rob, in the future? So no doubt we'll be talking about that at a later date. But it's all good.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. And I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Been a pleasure.
Bye now.
Bye.
And there we have it. That brings us to the end of this episode of the Leadership Untitled podcast. This episode will be called The Time Is Now. My thanks go out again to Graham for joining me today and sharing all his insight with us, and also for you guys out there listening in. Please, if there's any topics or guests you'd like me to invite onto the show or to cover, then please get in touch with me on the usual email address, phone number, LinkedIn, whatever your choice is, and I'll do my best to do that. In the meantime, thank you very much, and if you've not done so already, please subscribe so you don't miss out on any episodes. Speak soon. Bye now.